welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make a golden syrup loaf cake. So this is just a cake in a loaf tin using golden syrup as the flavouring basically. But I'm actually going to add in just a little bit of mixed spice as well, which is optional. You don't need to do that. You could, if you wanted to, grate some lemon zest and add that in as well if you wanted, but I won't. So it's actually very simple, this recipe, and I start off by preheating my oven to 160 Celsius, which is 140 Celsius with a fan, 320 Fahrenheit, and I've lined my 2-pound loaf tin with parchment paper. So for the ingredients, I have 200 grams, which is 1¼ cups, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of plain flour. I also have 8 grams, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I have a pinch of salt. I have 3 grams, 1 teaspoon of mixed spice, but as I say, that is optional. 150 millilitres, which is ½ a cup plus 2 tablespoons of milk. 1 medium egg, which would be large in the USA, 100 grams, ½ a cup of golden caster sugar, but you could just use caster sugar or granulated sugar, that would be fine. 100 grams, which is 7 tablespoons and just a little bit more, but 7 tablespoons is fine, of unsalted butter, and 200 grams, 10 tablespoons of golden syrup. And this recipe is very, very simple. I'm simply going to take a small saucepan and I'm going to melt the butter and the sugar with the golden syrup. And that will get things started off. So I'll put those 3 into my pan. Now if you don't have golden syrup, you could use corn syrup, or I'm not quite sure of the flavour of corn syrup. Golden syrup has quite a nice distinct sort of caramel type flavour, but you could use corn syrup, and as I say, add lemon zest in or something like that if you wanted to. So with my 3 ingredients in the saucepan, I'm simply going to put those onto the heat and melt those down. You don't need to see that. And once they've melted down, I'll leave it for a few minutes just for the temperature to reduce before we mix the rest of the ingredients. I melted the golden syrup with the sugar and the butter, and that's been set to one side for a while now. It's still warm, or still hot, but not too hot. So the next thing I'm going to do is to sift my dry ingredients. So I'm going to put the baking powder into the flour with my mixed spice and my salt, and I'll just give those a mix around to start to combine them, and then I'm going to sift the flour into a larger bowl, and really that's to get those other ingredients incorporated and distributed fairly evenly throughout. I'm just going to take the other piece of flour. So with that, like that, I'm then going to put my egg into my milk. And I'm just going to give that a mix around to break the egg up. And then all we have to do is to incorporate the 3 sets of ingredients. So I'll just make a bit of a well in the bottom of my bowl, and I'm going to pour in the golden syrup, butter and sugar mixture. That's good. And then I'm going to pour in the milk and egg mixture, and I'm going to start whisking straight away, and I want to keep mixing this until the flour is fully incorporated and there are no lumps. That looks quite good like that. So I simply need to put that into my prepared loaf pan. That's good. And then I'm going to put that into the oven, which, as I said, is preheated to 160 Celsius, 140 Celsius with a fan, 320 Fahrenheit. And I'm going to leave it to cook for about an hour until I can test it with a skewer in the centre and it comes out clean. And then I take it out of the oven and leave it in the tin for at least 10 minutes before I take it out of the tin and put it onto a wire rack. And at that point I'll come back and show you what it looks like and we'll have a taste of it. Now I should say that it's likely to crack along the top, but that's quite normal with loaf cakes like this, so don't worry about that at all. So once it's baked and it's been cooling down, I'll come back and show you how it looks. I baked the golden syrup loaf cake for exactly an hour, and it did rise. It didn't split on the top. If I'd have baked it at a higher temperature, I think it would have split on the top, but it didn't. It baked nice and level, and I tested it with a skewer and it came out clean. So this is what it looks like now. I've actually allowed it to cool down completely, and I took it out of the loaf pan after 15 minutes and put it on a wire rack to cool, and I've sliced it now. So it's going to be nice and moist, I know that. And I'll have a taste of this piece. Has that lovely flavour of golden syrup running through it. Very moist, and I do get the hint of the mixed spice as well. This is perfect with a cup of tea in the afternoon, but I think it would also be very, very good served in slightly larger portions with some ice cream or some custard or something. It will also keep well if you wrap it in plastic wrap and store it in an airtight container, or wrap it in greaseproof paper and store it in an airtight container for a couple of days. I think the flavour will intensify as well. So that's going to be it for this recipe, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.